So I recently did a video on what services that I'm running on my Homelab. It was a heavily software focused video and I briefly touched on some of the hardware. And apparently one of the biggest questions, what the hell am I running for the hardware? How is it all set up? What physical components are keeping the wheels on the tracks? So first of all, where the hell is it? Unfortunately, I live in a college town in an apartment, so I can't really do much modification when it comes to the room or where my internet comes in at, and unfortunately that is in the kids' room. Dead set in the middle of a bunch of toys, stuffies, and whatnot is a big old giant server cabinet. And that server cabinet is right here. This is the NavePoint 22U. Honestly, for the current hardware I have in it, this is definitely overkill. My thought process for purchasing this thing was future upgradability. I could probably use something about half this size right about now. And the only thing actually, I don't have any actual servers rack mounted in there. But overall, the thing is pretty nice as a glass front, so I can see in it. It locks, it has wheels, so I can move it around. I don't have the back thing on it, just makes life easier, keeps it cooler. It does have some fans on it, which is nice when it gets incredibly hot. So that just will help with general airflow. But overall, it's pretty standard. I mean, it's got some cable management stuff. For the price, it's not that bad. You could probably go on Facebook Market and find something used for that's bigger and can actually have long servers in it for much cheaper. But I do like it. Additionally, there's a little drawer in there, which is nice. It has a bunch of like server bolts and random cords in it. And then we have a little shelf unit, which actually the computers or the NASs sits on currently. Which, speaking of NASs, servers, and computers, let's talk about that right after I thank the sponsor of today's video. Protoarc and their ergonomic mouses. This right here is the EM01, and I have been using this mouse for just over a year. This thing is awesome. It fits the palm of my hand perfectly. There are adjustments. There are multiple modes, so you can use either the USB dongle or Bluetooth with this thing. We have this smooth trackball on the side, and we have a couple other buttons that are programmable. This thing has been my go-to. But of course, this right here is not the only form factor that they offer. This right here is the EM03. And instead of just having the buttons right here, kind of like your standard mouse, this one has the left click here and the right click over here with the ball in the middle for your index finger instead of your thumb. You can access the ball right here, pop it out for easy cleaning if you do need to. Scroll wheel is over here on the side. We have two additional buttons on the side here. On the bottom, we have our little USB dongle as well as our buttons to switch the lighting off, on, and switch between your various Bluetooth modes. So if you have a preference, they have the options for you, and I'll be linking to both of these down below with an additional discount. So again, big thank you to Protoarc for sponsoring this video. So with that, let's actually dive on into the computer hardware infrastructure of my home network. And the first one we're going to be talking about here is my little Intel NUC. This device originally was exclusively added to kind of take weight off of one of my other machines for running Plex. I have a lot of people who connect to my Plex server, so I gave Plex its own little dedicated machine to prevent stuttering, lagging, things like that for all the people who are watching media. This device in particular is the latest, the Intel NUC 13 Pro. It's the Arena Canyon Mini PC. This is the listing right here. Very expensive at $1,000. Honestly, I got this as a kind of review unit that I got to keep, and if I wouldn't spend $1,000. A 11th gen would be perfectly fine for my use case. Probably get away with spending like $500 on a NUC instead of the latest model, but I'm not complaining here. This one specifically has 32 gigabytes of RAM, and here is a, I think, 500 gigabyte NVMe SSD that was in a different NUC that I put in this one to upgrade it. I had to do some configuration changes and whatnot to be able to do that, but it worked pretty good. We got two USBs on the front, an auxiliary, power, and on the back we have some goodies. We got the power Thunderbolt, which is very nice. We have HDMI, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, which is phenomenal. Two more USBs, with one of them being a 3 and another HDMI. Now when it comes to my hookups, I'm using the HDMI because I have another little display that I kind of just have B-top running. Looks kind of cool in the server cabinet. Obviously I have the internet plugged in, and I actually have a single USB plugged in specifically to power a like a little Google Home thing. It's not actually connected to the network infrastructure. It's just the easiest way to power the thing. Again, I'm not really going to talk about the software too much, but the primary kind of software on this one is Ubuntu Server. Ubuntu Server, just kind of base install. Docker is installed on it with Protainer, and then I use Protainer to manage all the Docker containers. Obviously, the main one being Plex, like I just mentioned, but there have been some additional ones that we've added recently that don't really have like really nice Unraid applications, such as TeslaMate, Mealy, and Chasm are all on here, all Docker stuff. I'm a big fan of Docker. Now I do say, this is my Plex server now. Do I store all my Plex media on this thing? No, I do not. Oh, within my FS tab, I do have a network share that connects to the data directory on this guy right here. This is the TerraMaster T6, what is it? Here it is, the TerraMaster T6-423 6-bay high performance NAS. Which, I mean, it performs well. I'm not sure I would use the phrase high performance. I mean, it has an Intel Celeron N5095, which is pretty standard for NAS network hardware type things. It's not the best CPU in the world, but it does pretty good with things like Plex media encoding if you're having like 1 or 2 streams. And for the most part, everything I run on it is pretty lightweight, so it can handle just about everything fine. Now, one of the reasons why I like this thing is it is an absolute beauty, and to be honest, I would probably actually purchase this thing, or at least one of the kind of skinnier rack mounted solutions. We got 6 bays. If I pop this open and slide it on out, I run the same hard drives in both of my NASs. These are Iron Wolf NASs, 4 terabyte. I'm probably going to upgrade to larger capacity soon, or at least start the process. This device is running Unraid, and that's one of the really cool things about it is I can slowly replace drives starting with my cache pool, upgrade that, and then start upgrading drives as I can afford it. Sliding it back on in, you just push it, pop this down, you're locked and loaded. Now this thing isn't real too crazy in the way of I/O. We have 2 USBs that support up to 10 gigabit. You can see I have a USB drive in here right now. This is my Unraid drive. You have to boot Unraid off of a USB. It's not really my favorite situation, but it's the situation nonetheless. This one has an HDMI, which is really cool. Not all NASs have that. It's good to have the option. This one has dual gigabit Ethernet, which is also really nice. One thing, the power cord or the power input is right here, which is a very weird and inconvenient place to put it. There's actually an internal USB drive or USB port in here. If I got one of those really stubby ones, I could put Unraid on that and put that in here, but I just never have. It's not that big of a deal. But if I want to really kind of complete this, that's what I would do. I keep saying Unraid. The software that shipped on this is kind of like a Synology ripoff, which isn't my preference. I have a separate video kind of smack talking it, but I'll link to that down below if you're interested. Despite my complaints, this thing is pretty upgradable. This is the LTT stubby screwdriver. So it does have this little nice side panel. Ugh. That just slides off for you here, exposing a spot to put an additional RAM stick, which I have not done yet. I should do because there's 8 gigabytes of RAM in here, and I'm usually using all of it with Unraid. I have a 2 terabyte NVMe SSD right here. I need to put another one in so they could kind of mirror each other, and then if one fails, it's not a big deal. That's my cache drive. I have all my kind of Docker configs and things like that store in cache automatically, and everything else is on the spinning disk drives. And like I said, I have some shares. One of them is the data directory, which is accessible in most devices within my house, automatically mounts with the Nook. Are there any other spectacles worth mention? We have our hardware transcoding engine, supports everything I need. Pre-installed memory, it says 4, it was actually 8, which is nice. Supports up to 32, something I should probably do. All of these devices are relatively low power. This is fully loaded. It takes 40 watts, which is not that bad at all. I have a very low power setup here. Got the Nook running, got this, and then we have the Synology, which we are about to touch on. And with Unraid, like I said, with this thing, anything that has a really nice kind of application config situation within Unraid is on that machine. It performs very well. It hosts anything to do with like media management, not actually streaming, but management will be on this device. If I search for an application that's available within Unraid, it will go on the Unraid machine. There it is, Synology DiskStation 1522 Plus, featuring 4 1 gigabit Ethernet ports. We have a 10 gigabit option. 2, what is this? SATA connectors, and the power, which is a really, really shitty kind of proprietary port that comes unplugged if you breathe on it wrong. You can see I can add some cache right there. That's the 10 gigabit little card you could add to it if you want to, neither of which I have done. And that's primarily, the server really doesn't do too much. This is more of my backup server. I use it, of course Synology software is pretty cool, but I primarily use it for backing up photos, backing up important documents, things like that. I have my video or media production projects backed up to it automatically from Google Drive. Don't judge me. I have a business account with like 2 terabytes and I use it as my personal account, and it ends up being a pretty good deal. Now this does look good, but it's not as elegant as the TerraMaster. This kind of, and then these slide out, super dusty. Again, same 4 terabyte Iron Wolf hard drives. Where we get kind of disappointed a bit, where is it? Specs. We have a Ryzen R1600, which is really good for like the virtual machine software. It's a good CPU, but it's not, doesn't have the like media hardware encoding. So you're not going to want to get this device and put Plex on it. You're going to want to pick a unit with a Celeron or something. 2 core, pretty good speed, 8 gigabytes of DDR4 memory. Have 2 slots, so we could technically put 32 gigabytes in it, just like the TerraMaster here. It says maximum drive base 15. That kind of goes with the really weird naming scheme of Synology's. This is the DiskStation 15, not 5, which is the actual drive, 15, because that's what it is expandable up to. 22, because that's the year it came out, and I forgot what the plus means. I also use this for my surveillance system, which is another really good use case for that AMD CPU. And it's the hosts my UPC server, which is a nice built-in feature. Not as many options as I would prefer, but that takes us to our UPC. Now for our UPS, we have the Tripp Lite UPS. I'm pretty sure it's this one again. For the hardware I have in there, it's pretty overkill. Again, another one of those get it so I don't have to upgrade later kind of situations. This thing sports up to 900 watts, which I am not hardly using any of. If I scroll down here a little bit, we have some more information on the temperatures and whatnot. It has 8 outlets, which is very nice. I do kind of wish it had some like USB-Cs for power delivery, but it works pretty good for what it is. Here we have the loads. It supports 11.5 minutes on half load and 4 minutes on a full load, basically giving you just enough time to kind of signal whatever you're hosting the NUT server on or whatever to actually start the shutdown processes for your servers. Me, I'm using so little of the capacity that I think I have a 45-minute window before the battery will completely die out based on everything I currently have plugged into it, which is very nice because here power flickers sometimes, but when we have real bad windstorms or whatever, it usually goes out for like 20 to 40 minutes, which is just about perfect. And within Synology, I have it hooked directly up, and that will shut down the Unraid machine once it hits about 30%, and then the Synology will shut itself off when it gets to about 20% capacity. If you're going to be running a NAS, one of these is basically required. You could go with one significantly cheaper just to get the thing shut off, so if there's a power flicker or your power goes out, it won't kind of just stop the spinning disks, which can cause data loss, and you do not want that. In that server cabinet as well, like I said, I could use one half the size since there is a bunch of extra room in there. Sitting on top of this UPS is a printer. I forgot the exact model of it, but it doesn't matter because you should not buy it. Getting Linux drivers for the thing is an absolute pain. You can't even find the model on the website half the time. It's just not good. I mean, it prints fine, it scans fine, but it jams, the ink is expensive. I'm pretty sure all printers in their own way are bad, but I've had other printers, and this printer that I currently have is not great. Now I also have a little kind of touch screen thing. I don't use it as a touch screen, I just use it as like a small portable monitor, mostly for like Intel NUC stuff. If I need to go in there and I can't SSH for some reason, I could plug things into it. Makes it real easy when I'm not actively using it. I have it plugged into the Intel NUC with I think BTOP running, and it looks pretty cool with the glass screen and all that. TechHut Pi touchscreen. There it is. You could put a Raspberry Pi in it and use it as a Raspberry Pi touchscreen. This is the video. Everything that I'm talking about I've kind of covered in a separate video, so I will be linking. Full written review coming soon. That was a lie. Why is it gone? I know for a fact this isn't it. I guess I won't be linking to that one down below. Moving on to the actual router and whatnot. Like many things that I have in my server cabinet, this also is not very impressive. If we go networking, it is not even the best one, it is this one. I am rocking the Synology WRX 560 Wi-Fi 6 modem/router. The reason it is a modem/router is because with CenturyLink, at least where I am, the fiber optic network uses a PPPoE, which is a way to connect to your segment of their network. And because of that, I get to have one device, which is rather nice. And this is that device, pretty good coverage. Supposedly the same coverage as the one that's more expensive. You could have a mesh Wi-Fi network, which I actually do, but I only have one device. I'll jump into that in just a sec, but this thing's pretty cool because I have multiple networks. I have a main Wi-Fi network. I have a 2.5 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz only network, which is specifically for my cameras and my lights, devices like that, so they stay on that network. And the cameras I have aren't that great, so they would constantly get disconnected because this would try to put them on the 5 gigahertz. They don't support it. It's a mess. Additionally, I have this guy right here. Mesh router. CenturyLink makes these really easy. There's kind of a hierarchy of devices. You could get one of every Synology router product, and they work in a way to create a mesh network out of it with the same network configuration settings. It's pretty cool. Now cameras. The cameras I have are also not that great. This one right here, they're 60 bucks, and the software is absolutely garbage. They don't have power over Ethernet, which if I had a house, I would ditch these and get something with power over Ethernet. I actually have one of these that I'm not currently using because CenturyLink camera licenses to use their surveillance stations like 50 bucks a camera. It's perpetual, which is cool, but paying sucks. Power is micro USB, Ethernet, no power over Ethernet, and setting that up is weird. It's you still kind of have to connect to Wi-Fi. Has a little reset button. They do have a spot to put a memory card, but that doesn't work half the time. But in general, at least in the Synology software, they're relatively easy to control. They record pretty good. They kind of get a little staticky and cut out here and there, but pretty good. 1080p, I have everything set to 720p just because it works better on the network, which again only supports 2.5 gigabit or 2.4 gigahertz, which if you have multiple cameras streaming 1080p on the same 2.4 gigabit network or gigahertz network, you're going to start having problems. But yeah, pan, tilt, Wi-Fi, indoor security camera, they work. So yeah, that's all the technology that I'm currently using to run my home network. Nothing too crazy, nothing too overly advanced. Like I said, a lot of the stuff, the NASs that I've gotten as review units. If I were to purchase my own, I would either get a kind of rack-mounted TerraMaster unit and put Unraid on it, or I would just build my own. That'd probably be the best bet. The amount I would spend on that rack mount, I could build a much better system. I actually already have a case here because that was the intent. And it's a nice case. Rack mount. It's short, so it'll fit in my server cabinet. I'm in college supporting a family of 4, so some things have to come a little bit later. With all that, almost everything I mentioned will be linked down below, so if you're interested, you could check that out. And with all that, I do hope you have an absolutely beautiful day, and goodbye.